name is Tatiana Koval, and this is podcast Happy at Work. In our podcast, we will discuss a topic about employee value proposition and about employer brand management and how effectively work with it inside the company. And my guest today is one of a brilliant employer brand professional in Europe, Gergana Ancheva. Hi, Gergana.
Hello, Tatiana. Thank you so much for your kind words, first and foremost, and for having me. It's a pleasure to participate in your podcast. I'm Gergana, based in Bulgaria, far away from you. I'm a global employer branding expert with hands-on experience across various markets and geographies. My expertise is in EVP development, talent marketing communications, and employer branding at scale. And I'm really looking forward to discussing some of these topics with you today.
Grant, thanks for joining our conversation. My first question for you, what is a truly EVP? How to build the EVP which will resonate for the employers inside the organization and candidates outside the organization?
So EVP essentially is an abbreviation for employer value proposition. A modern, well-crafted EVP, in my perspective, is about quality, authenticity, and relevance. It should be more than just a slogan. It's where beautiful words meet the real experience of working at a company. You can actually really feel it even before joining an organization, during the very early stages, even during the recruitment process itself. During those initial touch points, you can see how the employer brand shows up. And then it's really about relevance and making sure that the proposition reflects the employee experience, that it goes beyond marketing slogans.
As I talk about EVP building and going live with this EVP, what are the main challenges that usually a company could meet on her way for implementation?
So depending on the type of the organization, companies usually face a couple of challenges. The first challenge when developing their EVP is when developing and launching is actually crafting an EVP that's going to resonate with the entire organization. This is not an easy task because within every single structure and within every single organization, we have multiple departments. Therefore, I would say it's a best practice when developing the EVP in those very initial stages to seek input from different departments so that you can collect information and craft an EVP that's aligned with your strategy and with the reality of working within the company. Another challenge based on my experience is actually remaining consistent. This is especially true for large organizations who are present in multiple markets, and remaining consistent with your message, because let's say it's difficult for one single sentence or one single slogan to be true for the entire organization in all the different markets. So it's definitely a challenge. And as a third challenge, I would say activation. We need to be really aligned internally as a team when launching and when developing as well the employer value proposition, because then we need to distribute that across the different functions, make people aware of this new EVP, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Gran, I want to talk a little bit more about how could they overcome these challenges. And I want to start with a second challenge, which you mentioned. It's about consistency.
Yeah.
You have a huge international experience when you work for different markets. What helps you to match your EVP with a global EVP with the local markets? What could help you to stay consistent? What could you share with our audience?
It's definitely a good question. I think at the core is it's about seeking balance, which is a challenge of itself as well, because we have the strategy, we have the global strategy, and we are usually seeking consistency. At the same time, we have multiple markets. Therefore, in the best case scenario, we are going to find a way to adapt this EVP in every single market. Usually, it's a best practice to keep the initial idea and meaning behind the EVP, but also translate it. For instance, you can translate it in different languages so that it better resonate with the people inside the organization in that specific market. Something else that I would like to add here is that it's really essential and critical to have strong bonds with the internal teams within the different markets, because these are the people that are going to be participated in the activation as well. So they also have a very critical role.
Mhm. Uh, as I talk about the first challenge which you mentioned, the challenge about finding the appropriate EVP, which could also you could see not just only in slogan and communication, but in daily practice.
Yeah,
I want to ask you one challenging question. What times to times we see the situation the company change their strategy. So that
true.
means what now we have in the organization is not enough for our future as organization. So times to times they work with EVP for the future. What could you recommend? For example, part of EVP is really current practice of the organization, and also they said it should be consistent because we could have more strong practice in one part of our organization in one country, some countries, in other countries maybe we need to improve them. And also times to times we understand what we have something challenging task, but we need it for the future. Now we're just in the process of building this part of EVP. What could you recommend? How to build, how to work the EVP for one side for improving employee experience based on your EVP, and how to bring new ideas, what is very important for company, for strategy, for the future, for attraction and retaining talents, which we need for the new I think a new company, because I think we are living in the era of a lot of different transformations. So which why
Mhm.
I decided to ask this question.
Yes, so it's a really long question. So I'll start answering step by step. Firstly, I think that the days of developing and brainstorming an EVP inside a boardroom by only selected group of individuals are over. Um, this is the first step. So we need to seek input from different teams and different departments, assess the organization and how it's perceived internally from multiple people. That's the first step. Then, as you mentioned, we live in very challenging and transformational times. And I think that an EVP will need to be updated at least more frequently, just because the strategy changes, the business reality changes, and this is just like a side effect of the business environment overall. Therefore, we need to be agile, we need to be adaptable and flexible, and make sure that the EVP we developed, let's say 2 years ago, for instance, is still true today. Most probably it's not going to be true. It really depends on the business, on the industry, and so on. But for sure, remaining adaptable and making sure that what we are conveying as a message and EVP today is actually still true.
Uh, what helps you to sell your ideas to a C level? As you mentioned in the beginning, but we need to sell our ideas. small group of the people, but the people have a great power of supporting your ideas. What helped you in the past, in the present, they also helping you in the present, to sell your ideas as a person who is responsible for building a strong employer brand for the companies?
Yes, the leaders of an organization are definitely very powerful, influential, and it's important that they are aligned with the EVP and how the employer branding person or team really perceived it. I think it's about demonstrating impact and speaking their language because in my opinion, employer branding, talent attraction, they can be very strong strategic partners. They can really support the business objectives if done right. This is what the C-level is interested in. If I'm about to sell the EVP to employees, for instance, like the majority of the employees, then it's different. You need to make sure that the EVP speaks even their everyday language, that it's aligned with their everyday task and employee experience. So different audiences have different needs. It's important to acknowledge the needs of each group of people and then adapt your selling based on that. Selling an EVP is not so easy because you are selling a belief. Most of the people, they already have their own beliefs, which means that you might need to face a situation where you are trying to change someone's belief. And in itself, this is not an easy task, but based on their needs, their priorities, I think you can adapt your pitch and you can sell based on that.
Mhm. Also, you mentioned what you need to work with different groups, and I
Yes.
want to sell for a different audience. What helps? What could you recommend? How to adapt? For example, big organization, different audience. From one side, it's people from IT. From another side, it could be a blue collars in organization. Or what could you recommend? Which approach you could recommend for building EVP, which could be really resonate with different groups, with different audience,
Mhm.
and how another way to make it really alive for the whole organization and consistent and all make all the messages consistent everywhere for all audience, but also resonate with their particular needs. What could you recommend this way?
So when we are talking about building the EVP and making it resonate with various groups, I think it's about seeking input from various groups because the information that you collect is your data. The EVP is usually based on a combination of qualitative and quantitative data. So once you've assessed the perspectives apologies, for these different groups, then you can start building on that. If you have completed this first and critical step, then once you have the EVP, you can start testing. You can start testing with different audience, different slogans, and then based on their reactions, based on how it's perceived, the rest can follow. But as a critical step at the very core, it's the development stage and how it's really built. It should be ideally, and the best case scenario is when you seek input from different groups, because afterwards, when you launch the EVP, it's going to be more relatable. If you haven't done it that way, then you risk having an EVP which is not so relatable. The problem with that is that the talent inside the organization will find it very difficult to connect with that message. If they feel disconnected with the message, even if it's very beautiful, it's really strong, then they are less likely to be engaged with your brand, and in the long term, it's not just going to be that impactful. Now, on the other side, we also have potential candidates and attracting new people inside the organization. So I think it's a best practice here to assess your external reputation and image too, while doing your extensive research, because external opinions can also give you some data, and they can also help you when building that EVP and when crafting your message. Having said all of that, it sounds like a very long process, and it usually is. But again, it really depends on the organization, on the reality, on the size, even on the size of the team that is developing and working on that EVP. I'm just outlining some key points that could be applicable to most of the people and the teams.
I think you mentioned a very important point. What the building EVP, building your employer brand, it's not so quickly. It takes time
No.
because you need to build the trust from the employee side. Gergana, I remember what in our first meeting when we were preparing for the conversation with this, we also discussed the topic about how to sell your EVP to your employees, and you start to talk about it. How could you define this idea to selling your EVP to the employees, and how they could do it in the real life?
I think selling the EVP to employees is about translating the EVP into concrete examples. So once we have the EVP, we have the strategy outlined, we need to move beyond presentation, decks, campaigns, although this is also important. And we need to make sure that employees understand what this means in their day-to-day job. So we are moving from company level and strategy level to a more personal experience and personal level, because this is what employees care about. The EVP is not going to be the critical factor and what will positively influence retention. It's the day-to-day stuff, the day-to-day processes, behaviors, how people are managed, how they are measured, that's going to make a difference. And the EVP should reflect all of that. So in a nutshell, it's about translating the EVP, the message, into concrete examples that actually explain how it applies in their everyday and day-to-day job and work.
Mm-hmm. I want to also discuss with you the next topic. It's about HR rewards.
Yep.
Time to time, it's also a good reason to believe for the employees when they see that the company company participates in different HR awards, and the expert community also said about the company have a good practice. How could you recommend for person who are responsible for employer brand to use this tool as HR awards?
So the awards, they're usually part of the employer branding strategy. They can definitely help you improve your external reputation, because they serve as a validation and as social proof. Now, awards are usually the result of internal work initiatives, depending on the award, but they usually reflect something that has been already done within the organization, and now it's recognized internally. If I need to recommend this to employer branding professionals, as you mentioned, I think it's just one part of the puzzle, of the employer branding puzzle. It's great to be part of your strategy, to make sure that it's aligned with the EVP as well, with its different teams or pillars, doesn't matter, so that we consistently follow the strategy inside the organization. But they usually serve as external validation and social proof.
Mm-hmm. My next question is about you. You told what you need to connect with different departments inside the organization during the process of implementing AVP. And I want to discuss about your experience. What is the best way to build a relationship between two departments who are responsible for communications? Usually it's a communication or marketing department. The second part is HR department, who usually responsible for employer branding. Or, for example, if employer brand is a part of responsibility for marketing communication, but HR, they are the persons who really have an interest in improving employer brand. Based on your experience, could you give some advice to audience about how to build relations, or what is the effective way to build these relations between these two important departments who have a huge impact on employer brand?
Yes, you're definitely right. All of these departments, HR, comms, marketing, TA, as well, employer branding, of course, they have a huge impact, and I would say even huge responsibility, because usually these are the people who are carrying the message and they're going to distribute it. Now, building relationships is a long-term commitment. So it's not going to happen overnight, but because you are asking for advice, I would say making sure you understand the needs of every single department and treat each team as different audience, if we have to use marketing language, because they all have different KPIs and things they care about. So if you try to understand them, put yourself in their shoes, make sure that you know what they are actually interested in, then it's going to be something that's most probably positively influence your relationship. And then it's about time as well. I mean, relationships need time to be built, they need to be nurtured. As I've mentioned, it's a good idea to seek the input of these people as well when developing the EVP, making sure that they also share their perspective, because for instance, HR, they work a lot of, they have a lot of work that's connected with the people. They hear a lot of stories, so they can really help you even during those initial stages of the EVP development, and then they can help you distribute this. When it comes to communications department, they usually need to also communicate it externally, which is equally important, because once we have the EVP developed internally, we would want to share more about it with external people as well. So I would say invest some time in getting to know these people, understanding their needs, seeking their input, and most probably it's going to positively influence the relationships that you build inside the organization.
Mhm. Gergana, I know what you're one of the well-known experts in Europe, and you
Thank
participate in
you.
a lot of events. So my next question for you is about trends.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know what you are looking for, the modern trends, and implement them in what you do. What trends you think could be the more important in 2026 for all the people who work in employer brand industry?
So looking ahead, I see three main trends. First and foremost, I think transparency will only increase. With AI and easy access to information, candidates can quickly learn more about an employer, which is something quite critical and important for companies and employer branding experts. Any major gap between what companies state publicly and what is being discussed by people in various different channels that are not the official channels of the organization will make it very challenging for employer branding people to actually prove credibility, and for companies to really sustain an image in the long term. So this is the first trend that I'm seeing. Moreover, more and more people are sharing their stories on LinkedIn. So definitely, I think transparency will increase. The second trend that I personally assume will be key is about human messages and connection. We live in the age of AI, so it's now really easy to generate various messages, but there is also an opportunity to make sure that you don't sound like everyone else, that you connect with people and it's more human to human rather than talking to people with cliches and just repeating basically the same messages. And the third trend, I think, will be about co-creation and employee advocacy, co-creating the EVP and seeking input from the employees. We've just discussed that in more details, and also empowering employees to be your ambassadors. People believe other people more than they trust in brands. So it's really important that this is part of the strategy of the employer branding experts and something that I see growing in the future.
Mhm. Gergana, thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge and your ideas. We are at the end of our conversation, and my last question is traditional for my guests. It is about three main tips. What could you give to all the people who will watch our podcast, who work in the employer brand industry? Or the three main tips could you give these people for 2026?
So the first one is remain resilient because as we've mentioned, it's it's very challenging for businesses and people. So resilience is something that's gonna be really important. The second tip is to remain authentic and to make sure that the work we are creating is actually aligned and is actually aligned with the organization and the employee experience. And the third tip is to keep growing and keep learning because things are changing very fast. So we need to make sure that we seek new knowledge that we can apply in our everyday work.
Gergana, thank you for your time. Thank you for participation, and I wish you a very productive and effective 2026.
Thank you, Tatiana. I wish you the best for the year ahead as well.
My name is Tatiana Koval, and this is podcast Happy at Work. Stay tuned.